Okay.
Good morning and welcome to A Better World with Julann and Fran. I'm Julann.
And I'm Fran, and our guest today is the wonderful Katt Lowe. Welcome, Katt.
Welcome.
Hi, thank you. Thank you.
Can you talk a little bit about something you have done or maybe you are doing now that's made the world a better place or is making the world a better place?
Yeah, sure. I like to believe, I say, that I am helping to make the world a better place by helping others reconnect to themselves and find their truth. That's one of the ways what I would say, I guess.
And what techniques do you use?
So I'm a hypnotherapist for the last 21 years, 22
Wow.
years actually, since 2004. And I also work with intuition and energy. So I love to help a person whose perspective perhaps on life is like they're in a box, right? And they don't believe, they see this way, they don't believe that they can have, be, and do anything that they choose, and that is for their highest good. And so I like to connect them to their true selves, their higher selves. I like to remind them that they're this amazing soul having this human experience and empower them. Excuse me. I like to empower them and help them to find their power and becoming the master of their minds, not the prisoner, understanding that their energy and everything is energy, and how to do energy work on themselves or with others. And of course, as I do hypnosis, so really just helping them with the power of the mind. And then also all of it intertwines to your intuition and trusting and believing in your own intuition. Yeah.
Yes, I remember you're very intuitive. I went to you for an energy healing once, and you were doing a Reiki type healing. And I was just laying there with my eyes closed, and you said at one point, "Wow, you really like symmetry." And you said it again, and it's so true about me. I really like symmetry. I don't like when things are unbalanced. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
"Wow, I couldn't imagine how you knew that, but you somehow got it just from your intuition."
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thank you for remembering that. Yes. Um, in all honesty, I mean, I don't believe it's all just me. You know what I mean? I believe that I have your guides and angels and mine. So I don't believe that the messages I get are from me. I believe that they're what you're meant to hear. Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
That's great. And do you ever have people who are just stunned to discover their own personal power?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I think it's one of the for me it gives me the most joy, because even as a musician before I got into all of this back in 2004, I was always very, very intuitive. And so I always knew things. I always have been able to see people's energy, and just empathically pick up people's emotions and what's going on. Never really put too much thought into it. I just thought everybody was like that. And then I began to understand that everybody is that way. But doing music was really, really wonderful and great. And it was a great way to get on stage and make everybody uh have a good time, even for that hour, to put their problems aside. So I think it was no coincidence at all that I just segued into doing hypnotherapy and energy work and intuition and teaching all of that. Because when you see somebody, so it was one thing to see somebody light up when you're on stage and having fun, or just being at a concert yourself and listening to music, and you see how it changes the vibration, you see how good it can help somebody to feel. But how could you help them sustain that? It's kind of like that whole idea of when you go to some kind of seminar, and it's a positive seminar with a speaker, and everybody just takes it and they're just like, yeah, I can do this. And then the weekend passes and give it another week or two, and that wears off because they're not having that consistent, it's just that 3 day weekend possibly, and they're not having the consistent reinforcement. So then when you start to see that I can work with people individually, or I teach them, individually or as a class, and then they get the positive, that reinforcement again and again, that inspiration, that motivation, and you see those lights go on, that light bulb go on, where they feel like, wow, I'm being seen, I'm being heard. I don't have to believe what my parents told me. I don't have to have their religious beliefs or their political beliefs or what school told me or my peers told me. I can actually have my own, autonomy, my own opinion. I think it's one of the best feelings in the world to watch them wake up to their soul, to who they are. Yeah.
Very much. Excuse me. Do you ever have somebody resist?
Well, that's a good question. I would say anybody who would resist would be somebody that's in my personal life, not in my professional life, right?
Okay.
Because they're paying me to help them. So that's different than if I was trying to tell a friend or a family member, look at this, look at that, that you've got all this in you. They might be a little bit more resistant based off of their belief system, but somebody who's coming to me actually wants to understand how to connect in that way.
They're more open. Do you find your family, uh, when you first started, they didn't get it? They didn't understand why? Or because you had that intuition, they kind of knew you were always right there on the cutting edge of knowing what's going on?
Ah, that's good. All of that is a good question and perspective. Yes, they, well, being like I was into music and playing guitar and singing, and I got to play with some of my heroes and, doing all of that in the beginning. And of course, some of them became some of my best friends. I guess it wasn't that big of a shift for then all of a sudden to say, hey, I'm going to go to school to be a hypnotherapist and energy comes out of my hands. I always joke that they probably are like, oh my God, now what is she doing? But honestly, always really, really supportive, very supportive. Like they're all proud of what I do. Does it mean that they believe in everything I do? Not necessarily completely, but they know there's truth to it, but I've never tried to make them believe in the same way I believe. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Um,
they
yeah.
believe you're bringing joy, and that's what you're
Right.
doing with your music
Yes.
and with all of this. So they don't have to always believe in how you get there.
Right. It's not that they don't believe in what I'm doing. It's not
Right.
that we might have different spiritual beliefs, some of us, and but only to a T, just a little bit, like just a little bit different, not a lot really. So we don't but we meet in the middle in so many more places that yeah, they've all I believe my family's all embraced what I do and are proud of me. But it's also like not needing to push my beliefs on anybody. So if that makes, I mean, they're your family, your family knows who you are, so you don't have to do that anyways.
Right.
Yeah, so I guess I haven't had a lot of, when I think about it, I really haven't had a lot of resistance with people that know me, even when I was in the music business, and because I used to work in it and play in it, and then but that feels like a past life now, really. So I feel like I've done this as long as I've done music now, and the crazy thing is I find more joy in it, but I should be clear about this, even though I am a songwriter and a musician. Instead of writing somebody a 3-minute song hypnotically, I'm writing them a 20-minute song. So I'm still being very creative all the time. So it's satisfying. I'm recording all the time. So that part never left me. So for them too, it might be like, it's not that far from what you were doing. And we already knew you had your woo when it came to intuition. And my mom is extremely intuitive as well. So that was not a surprise to her at all. And my grandmother on her side was also very intuitive. So that was definitely passed down, so to speak.
Do
Yeah.
you ever incorporate music?
Always. Yes, always. So I use more hypnotic music, and I license other people's music. Eventually, when I find time, I will make my own music, with the keys. More of a guitar player, but I can play keys to the degree of being able to just lay down some hypnotic music with it. So I love to incorporate music that has theta frequencies, or different frequencies, but generally theta, which is a hypnotic or meditative state. So when I record for them, when I'm doing it with them live, they're hearing me record it. I mix it down into an MP3 for them, and then that's what they get, and it's specifically tailored to them. And it's very, it's a very, when you do a hypnosis session, it's really nice to be able to provide an MP3 so it reinforces what we worked on. So they listen to it again and again.
That's what I was thinking, because like you said, with diets or whatever you're trying to overcome or accomplish, you fall off, right? New Year's resolutions, everybody's, yeah, it's great. And then February, everybody's like, oh, the heck with that. But by having that MP3, I would think that, anytime you feel a little doubt, you just listen and it brings you right back to that good place.
Right, exactly. And it doesn't mean that they don't need to book other sessions, but at least that session is reinforced over and over. So it's like an extra special little gift, I think.
It's a great foundation, right?
Yeah. I love that. Yeah.
Does theta music sound different than non-theta music?
Not anymore. I would say back in the day, when they first started coming out, it would be more very obvious. Like you would hear the and then they would, play, just try to bury it just a little. Now they're doing so great with it and blending it so well that you don't really hardly notice as far as sound goes. But when you listen, you will feel just this balance happen. You might just feel more relaxed, more calm. So you notice it energetically. It's the only way I can really put that. And hypnotically, you can feel a balance happening. It's really wild, honestly, when you think about it. And you can find frequencies on YouTube. There's a ton of them. One of my favorites, I'll give them a little plug, but where I will direct some of my clients to listen to music, like say they have ADHD, right? They would listen to a beta frequency. So even in hypnosis, though, I can put a theta frequency because it'll still help them to focus on what I'm doing, or focus on hypnosis. But if they were to listen to a beta frequency, that will help them stay where their mind won't travel, more focused. So there's a really great YouTube channel called Green Red Productions, and they have a lot of really good, I think, frequencies out there. But I'm seeing it all over the place now. You're seeing it in apps, and people can get it on apps and listen to it, and it's good technology. It's a great advancement, I think, to help people so that they're not seeking other ways of doing things. Yeah, to get there.
Yes. Yes. I often liken hypnosis and Reiki and the more natural types of healing to when you're trying to, if you wanted to make your biceps stronger, you lift heavy weights. And while you're lifting the weight, you're making micro tears in the muscle. And then you put the weight down and you rest, and your muscle repairs itself, and then you're stronger. When you heal yourself from within, you actually become stronger. And if you take something from the outside, and I never tell people don't go to the doctor or anything like that, but when you take something from the outside or, like that, it's not quite the same thing. It does make you feel better, but it's not quite as good as if you can heal yourself from within.
Absolutely. And you know this because you're an amazing hypnotherapist. Yes. And
Thank you.
teacher. Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely. Yes. So agreed, 100%. And when they realize, when you empower them, so that even in, say, they get a diagnosis that is could be devastating, if they really start to realize, oh, I can help myself to heal and help my mind and my body. Yes, it's so empowering to realize. So it absolutely, you don't tell them not to go to the doctor, but at the same time, it can work hand in hand with them in tandem.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I had a nickel for every time I told somebody every day, look in the mirror, look in your own eyes, and thank yourself for healing yourself completely and quickly, or something like that, I would be a very wealthy woman because I tell that to people so frequently.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And it's unfortunately though that I'm doing that in a Western medical environment because it really it a lot of people don't really think that that will accomplish anything.
Yeah. You know, that's where you've heard me, I'm sure, say before, East meets West is the best, really, because Eastern, to me, even though we know hypnosis to come from, Europe, US, really it's an Eastern, to me, more of an Eastern practice. It really is guided meditation at its core. And ultimately they had already figured out, as Buddhists would say, it's all about the power of your mind, which was never meant to be a religion. It was meant to be a way of life and learning how to control your mind. And then all that started happening. But yes, and so the East has always been a little bit more open to this type of healing. So whether that was hypnotically in the power of your mind, or that whether that was energy, which we know qigong is over 5,000 years old, that is documented, and then think acupuncture, which is also working with the meridians and the energy within the body. And it's here, for some reason that it gets, well, we know the reasons, that it gets so resistant to other ways of healing than medicine. And it doesn't mean medicine doesn't have a place. It absolutely does. And it's amazing. And we've done a lot of really wonderful things. But I think including mindfulness, hypnosis, meditation, traditional Chinese medicine is really important too.
Absolutely. Yes, I think, although it was not yet called hypnosis, I think Jesus used hypnosis.
Yeah.
In the Bible, in any of the stories that you read about somebody coming to Jesus for a healing, Jesus would always say, "Your faith has made you whole." In other words, you did this with your mind. I didn't do anything. You believed coming to me would help you, and that's what did it. And
Yes.
the word was not yet coined. I think they said at HMI that hypnosis is only about 200 years old. But I
Right.
think that that's what Jesus was doing. And then, of course, laying on of hands was Reiki.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. He was a healer, true and true. And he said, you can do what I do, even better. And in his name. But a lot of people didn't hear that. They don't hear, they feel disempowered. Yeah. By in my opinion, they feel like it's great to know that you have a higher power and angels and guides, and Jesus would be considered an ascended master, right, when you look at it in that way. And it's great to know that they exist and can help. But yes, he was trying to empower people, and just what you said. And I think a lot of people miss that message a bit. Not
Yeah,
everybody, but quite a bit.
yeah. Um, I've been a student of A Course in Miracles for 30 years now. And
Yeah.
in that belief system, it is a Christian belief system, but we refer to Jesus as our elder brother.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And when we
I
speak, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I said I love that. Yeah.
Oh, good. And when we speak of God's son, traditionally in the Bible, when they would say God's son, they meant Jesus, but God's son is a reference to us. We are the child of God, and really, as Jesus taught, we are on the same level,
Mhm.
but we tend to prefer, I think, having someone in charge and having someone lead us.
Yes, yes. Um, Another interesting thing, since we're going there, um, a lot of people don't understand that in the Bible, God isn't really male. It's in the Bible. It says something to the reference of he's a great bright light. But we say he, like I just said it, but there isn't really a gender to it. But unfortunately, they keep trying to force that gender to such a great bright light. And and I love the Course in Miracles. And there's also somebody I love, Yogananda. I don't know if you ever got into Autobiography of a Yogi, right? And then he does one called The Second Coming of Christ, Christ Consciousness. And so he basically takes everything that Jesus said and to gives his perspective of what he believes was really being said, which also connects to Hinduism, which then connects to, what Krishna was saying. And you see a lot of the likenesses, probably because it's the same source, and so many different directions I can go there, but so beautiful, all of that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned that you've always been very intuitive, and your mom and your grandmother too. Um, was it always a positive experience for you?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, there was a moment when I was a child, about, I would say, up until I was about 6 years old, 7 years old, I would see ghosts and
Mm.
at night, and it would scare me. So I remember my sister would, like, she's my older sister, she's 2.5 years older than me. So I would start crying and I would see them in our room, and then she would just do some magic. And it's so funny. We had uh, this little ceramic thing on our wall that was a parachute with cats in it. No surprise, right? Since I love cats so much and I'm a cat. Uh, and she would put Play-Doh in the back to say they were coming out of there. So she was trying to find a way to get me to believe that they were gone. And I remember we were in bunk beds, and I would just turn against the wall and kind of cry myself to sleep.
Mm.
And eventually, I think that the spirits went, okay, we're gonna have to show up in a different way, because we don't want her to wind up on psych meds and think, everybody thinks she's crazy. That's what I always feel happened. And we moved out of that house, actually, too, so that could have been a piece of it. And so now I see them more like orbs and little white diamonds and blue diamonds. And just different, I always see energy. I never have a clean slate. So it's kind of like how you see snow on a TV, but it's clear and it's always moving. I think everybody sees it. They just don't realize it. So I just get the honor of being able to introduce that to them, for them to see that when they close their eyes, what really is behind their eyes. What are they noticing? What are they seeing? So I would say that was the only experience that I've had that wasn't, I wouldn't say it was a negative experience. It was their way of like, hey, we're over here. And I'm like, creepy, help. So now, even as much as I would like to see them in that way, I don't see them in that way, but I do see them energetically, and I see them in my mind. So I don't see them outside of, well, outside vision, so to speak, but I see them in the inner vision. And but I've never had a bad experience. I really, I think that a lot of times, I'm not saying it doesn't exist and it doesn't happen. I think a lot of times the people who have bad experiences have in some way been indoctrinated into a belief system, a religious belief, and or just what their parents believed, and made it scary and bad. So therefore, that's how they think about it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Can I ask, do you think it's people who are more intuitive that you see, or do you see the lights and the aura of everyone that you come in contact with?
Oh, I see it with everyone, but everybody has an aura. Everybody has everything has energy. Even inanimate objects have some type of energy that they're putting out into the field, the energy field. So everybody has it, but if you have a busy background, the best way to see it is like in a white background, if you really want to read an aura. And I believe in the Kirlian photography and all of that to a degree. Like, I believe in it, but so you can walk into a place, get your aura energy taken. I think it's real. But as soon as you leave, uh, you could get a phone call and or hear some bad news or just something else, and your aura starts to change, right? So, and your aura is really just where you are in your chakras and where your energy field is, and so that's what you're putting out. So you might come in and go, look at my aura, it's like this beautiful color of rainbow lights or purples and things. And at that moment it was, but then we continue throughout the day and it shifts in place because we're just moving in and out of our energy, when I say that. So I do see it, but the reason for saying that is so I don't put too much weight into it when I see it. The only time I get concerned is if I see a muddy color. So it's kind of like seeing a rainbow, but never as bright as a rainbow in the way I see it. But it's kind of like seeing a rainbow, but when you see the muddy color, what that tells me is, like, say there's a a muddy brown or green. So not brown or yellow, right? I would go, okay, that's the third chakra that they need to work in, or the green, maybe there's something going on in the heart chakra. So that's the only way I look into it. So it's never a diagnosis, so to speak, but it does let you know, oh, it might just be like they have a great blue around them and they're in their throat chakra right now. So, there's so many, I can go down a whole rabbit hole in that. Yeah. Yeah.
When you know you're going to go out into the public and there will be other people there, so you're going to a restaurant or a show or something, do you have to do a protection ceremony for yourself to keep yourself from reading everybody?
Yeah. I like that. No, I don't think about it anymore. I'm just
Hmm.
aware of it all the time. I probably did in the beginnings when I started to really look into it. But what I did start to do, especially in LA when I was there, uh, and I'm still an LA girl, through and through, even though I moved to New York, which I love too, and I'm on a lake. So it's a different, I can tell you the vibration is so different. When you're on a lake all the time, it's like being at the ocean all the time. You can feel the difference in the frequencies. But when I would go into stores like say Whole Foods, I started to make sure not to look at everybody that was in the store, not connect to everybody, because the moment we all do that, we look at somebody, you're starting to, read the energy, right? So you're starting to pick up their energy. And I decided not to do that because I did it enough with my daily work that I didn't want to do it after work when I was done working with people, then to go out and do it in the store. Because you can usually, I think anybody can do this. You look at somebody, you pretty much know what's
Kind of,
going on in their day. You can feel their sadness or their happiness. And, if you really connect into their energy field. So I used to do this thing when my office was in Beverly Hills for a long time. I would walk down the street and I would look at different people and I would imagine sending them energy bombs,
Hmm.
just energy that would go to them. And I would say some kind of, you know, prayer, so to speak, hoping that they receive the energy if they're meant to receive it and that it helps them throughout their day, and something that I would say for their highest good. So I would always send energy out to people. But the older I've gotten, I think, and more open I've gotten, I've definitely become more sensitive, so I don't, in my intuitive classes and my Reiki classes, I don't really, I just imagine I'm surrounded by the white light, and I don't worry about anybody getting into my energy. But I can say that there are times I'm not as guarded as I thought I was. And then I can feel people's anger, or even if it's not directed at me. And that's where then it brings me to my awareness of going shields up and just imagining or pulling your aura in, even crossing your arms brings your aura in a little bit. But just that's usually when I go, okay, so this is suddenly it's affecting me, and that's when I realize it. So it's a very rare that it happens, but even recently it happened where it affected my energy, and didn't I don't think about it too much. And so then you just have to, I kind of just imagine an invisible shield going up, you know, and just release all the cords and the energy and emotions that no longer serve me and are mine or are not mine kind of idea. And then that's where I do it. Does that make sense? That was a
Yes.
long answer.
no,
It's
perfect.
it's fascinating to me.
Yeah.
I too, as it happens, am intuitive, but I didn't realize it until relatively recently. I
Ah,
didn't realize when I was a kid. My dad passed away when I was 2. And when I
mm,
was a kid, I was really difficult to put to bed because I was afraid of everything, like being in that bedroom alone. We had a 2-story house, so my mom would be downstairs, I'd be upstairs. And I would think the most bizarre thoughts, like the closet is like a coffin. And if I wouldn't take a bath because the tub was like a coffin, and I was just
wow.
obsessed with that. But anyway, I used to, when I would go to bed, and I always had to have the light on completely. I would feel what felt like somebody was tapping on my arm. And now any normal person would tell you it was a muscle twitch. But I remember telling my mom when I was a kid, it feels like maybe my angels are tapping on my arm and they're trying to get my attention. And it didn't occur to me until I was a grown up. Maybe that was my dad tapping on my arm, letting me know he was with me. You
Absolutely.
know?
Yeah, I love that. And
Yeah.
maybe both, right? But yeah, I love that what happened? How did you stop thinking about it as a bath or
Well, for the first 18, no, well, 16 years, from the time I was 2 until I was 18, I was completely obsessed and death was a bad thing. And then I went to Brooklyn College and I took a class called Death, Life, and Health, in which we did close readings of books like Ordinary People, which is very much about the death of a child, or he was 16, I guess, but still a young person. We analyzed Hotel California, the lyrics,
Mhm.
and it just I had a completely different opinion of it. And now I'm actually very interested in death. I,
Yeah.
the only podcast to which I listen is called Dead Talks. It's this charming young man who's from, I think, Staten Island. His name is David Ferrugio. And every week he has somebody on who's either, he has hospice nurses on. He has people who've experienced death and been revived. He has people who've lost loved ones and started some organization that they wish that existed for them when they lost their. So it's just a very interesting podcast. But now I'm actually very comfortable with death, and I'm in a sense I'm almost eager to experience it. I want to.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. There's some great books that you might enjoy with Sylvia Brown. You probably know her. She was a renowned psychic way back when, and
Mhm.
feel bad for Sylvia because she started getting on the Montel Williams show and basically doing like what the Long Island Medium does, which is to be on that call like that all the time. You're going to get things wrong, and so she got a couple things wrong, and then they dragged her under the bus basically. But there was a lot of accuracy with her, and so she has books like The Other Side and Back, Life on the Other Side. Those were some of the first books I was able to read. I actually had a reading with her, and we were born on the same day, but October 19th, but she was much older than me. And she was just phenomenal. I'll never forget, she had an office in West Hollywood, Westwood. And so I was on Laurel Canyon and Hollywood Boulevard back in those days. And I was probably in my late 20s. I don't even think I was 30 yet. And I went and saw her. And I think back then I paid $700. And
Wow.
yeah. And so I'm thinking this is before 2000, maybe 2000. But she was worth it for half an hour. And my best friend and I went and saw her in seminars and stuff. And she said she came in, she had this condo, she really lived up north, but this is one of her homes that she had. And she said, "Hi, honey." And then she said, "Don't ask me any questions. Let me just tell you what I get." And I'm telling you, for like 20 minutes, she just like, and I'm sure 15, 20 minutes, my jaw probably dropped because everything I wanted to ask her, she answered. And that tends to happen when you do readings. And one of the things that she shared with me was that we had shared a life. We knew each other, not shared a life. We knew each other in Egypt, which I already knew because you just have those people that feel like home. And I'm sure it was doing some form of healing work, but she was very, very accurate. And so I highly recommend her books, Life on the Other Side, The Other Side and Back. And you're lucky if a psychic is 80% right. And a lot of people don't realize that. So psychics read your energy, right? And what you're putting out into the world. Mediums are talking to spirit and they can read your energy. So a psychic is not always a medium, but a medium is always a psychic. And I prefer intuitive. So I like to call myself an intuitive because psychics have been given such a bad name over the years. But she was so I can do both. I can connect to spirit and talk to life people on the other side, but I can also read the energy of what they're putting out. And I think one of the things I always like to say is I don't make predictions. So the kind of energy work I do, another way of how do I help people in the world, or the kind of intuitive energy I do and readings is that I just want to know what I need to know in order to help them get to that next level. I don't want to know their deep dark secrets. I don't care. I don't want to know, if the something dangerous is coming. That if they don't need to know, I don't want to know. I don't make those kind of predictions. And I think Sylvia was somewhat that same way, to a degree. But anyways, check her out.
I
Or
will.
worth it. And she reads her own books, so you could hear her voice. Sometimes I hear her voice. And she'll be like, "Thanks, honey." Just I feel like she's saying that now. Like, thank you for,
Right.
her for who she truly was. Did you know who she was, Julian?
I
I didn't.
No. Oh, okay. I thought that you were going to say you, Fran. Did you know?
I knew who she was. I've never read her books. So
Yeah.
thank you for recommending them. I will absolutely get some.
I think you'll love it. Life on the Other Side. And there's another book, and I'll have to tell you what it is that I read a long time ago. I think it's called Into the Light. And it was a doctor who he was not a believer, and then he kept having these experiences with his patients. And
Brian Weiss.
no, it wasn't Brian
Oh,
Weiss. Oh, somebody else. I'll find it and I'll email you.
thank you.
He would where he became a believer because it was kids that he was working with. They would always tell these stories that there was no way that they didn't know. Or we know those stories about when you're in surgery, they're totally knocked out, but they're actually astral traveling, so they know who's in the waiting room. They know that they died on the table and what the doctors were saying, and they're able to recite back what you said and what was going on. It's quite fascinating. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Oh, goodness. Well, thank you so much for all of that wonderful information. Jewel, do you have any more questions?
Well, I always like to ask if there was something that you could that you could have the audience do, some message you'd want to give them, how to, make the world a better place or their life better. What would it be?
The first thing that comes to me is to take care of you. I think a lot of times people put everybody else first. It's natural for the majority. And I think they forget to take care of themselves. It's kind of like put the oxygen mask on yourself before you put it on others. Believe that all the power really does reside within you. I love to say that you're not your thoughts, you're not the body, you're not your emotions, that you're this amazing soul having this human experience. I truly believe that we came in with a light blueprint and we signed up for a few things. And we have intentions for ways that we came down here, what we wanted to experience. And we can get thrown off track, but you can get put back on track if you want to, if you truly want to. And believe that, you are this amazing soul having this human experience. And that you can have, be, and do anything you choose that is for your highest good, that you aren't stuck. A lot of people feel like they're stuck, and you don't have to be stuck. It's just one foot in front of the other, and finding, people can help you find your way if you allow them to.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That's
For
so
being
hopeful. And how do people get in touch with you if they'd like to?
Oh, thank you. So I have a website called connectwithin.com because I like to help people connect within. So connectwithin.com or kattlowe.com. But that'll take you to connectwithin.com, but that's where they can get a hold of me there.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being our guest today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
It was our pleasure. And this has been another episode of A Better World with Julann and Fran. Please like and share this video and subscribe to the station. And please join us again next week if you would. Okay. Now, how do I?
Hi. Thank you.
So long for now.
Thank you.
Okay.